Hello and welcome to everyone for the AGEO Labs Round 2 information webinar. I'm Laura Spellbrink from FrontierSI and I'm the Program Manager for AGEO Labs. I'm joined by Claire James, the Director of the Data Innovation and Analytics Directorate at AGEO, and Scott Loney, the Project Manager from AGEO, as well as several other AGEO subject matter experts. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the FrontierSI website later this week. As an agenda as to what we will go through today, first of all, brief introductions to FrontierSI and to AGEO. We'll then cover the AGEO Analytics Lab's vision and spend most of the webinar looking at the round 2 challenge topics that have been released, followed by a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Please use the Q&A function throughout the webinar. We'll be facilitating this Q&A at the end, and there's no stupid questions, so please keep the questions coming. We'll endeavour to answer all your questions this webinar, but if there's any that we need to take on notice, we will follow up afterwards, and there will be a Q&A document posted on the FrontierSI website afterwards also. First, an introduction to FrontierSI. So we are a not-for-profit applied research and innovation centre focused on geospatial and space-related science, development and analytics projects. We work across Australia and New Zealand, brokering and delivering projects with and for our partners. And our key capabilities are in geodesy, positioning, spatial infrastructures, and in analytics. We work across a range of sectors, and we've partnered with AGEO to deliver the AGEO Labs Innovation Program. I'll now pass over to Claire James to give an overview of AGEO. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Laura. Well, as Laura said, my name is Claire James. I'm the Director of the Data and Innovation and Analytics Directorate within AGEO, and my team works closely with FrontierSI and the vendors in the AGEO Labs program. So the Australian Geospatial-Intelligence Organisation, which is better known as AGEO, is the lead agency for geospatial data, information and intelligence for defence and the national intelligence community. We use the term GEOINT to describe the collection, analysis and dissemination of imagery and geospatial information, to describe, assess and visually depict physical features and geographically referenced activities in the air, land, maritime and space domains. And GEOINT enables defence to succeed in the delivery of a broad and diverse range of functions. These include operational planning, conduct of missions and operations, situational environmental awareness, intelligence assessments, development of strategic policy and safety of navigation in the air and maritime domains. As part of the Defence Intelligence Group, AGEO provides strategic leadership for the Defence GEOINT community, and our mission is to provide GEOINT for the defence of Australia and its national interests. Our vision is to transform Defence GEOINT into an integrated and future-focused capability. And to deliver this vision, Defence will transform the way it collects, analyses and disseminates GEOINT. Over the next decade, as Australia responds to increasingly complex national security environment, GEOINT will be an important enabler. As the demand for GEOINT grows, AGEO will need to become more agile and adaptive, invest in new capabilities, solve problems with innovative thinking, and leverage our partnerships to better integrate and realise our vision. Slide, please, Laura. The Defence GEOINT 2030 strategy articulates Defence's vision and strategy to develop and integrate GEOINT capabilities that meet the needs of the future force. In developing the strategy, a number of factors were considered, including the increased pace of technological change and greater access to data. It's been recognised that as new and enhanced capabilities continue to be developed with a greater volume and fidelity of data, Defence risks being overwhelmed and unable to fully exploit the data available and the technologies. A number of strategic goals have been developed within the Defence GEOINT 2030 strategy in line with these risks. As a community, we are looking to drive continuous GEOINT innovation. This means Defence is looking to evolve capability acquisition, science and technology and innovation processes to increase the rate of adoption of automation, artificial intelligence and computer vision technologies. Innovation will be enabled by more effective engagement with existing defence innovation platforms and partner capabilities, particularly with industry and academia. Another goal is to raise, train and sustain an expert GEOINT workforce. To do this, the Defence GEOINT community will collaborate to forecast skills profiles for future GEOINT professionals, to identify potential risks and gaps across the community, and to develop organisational strategic workforce plans. The Defence GEOINT community will invest in career-long learning and development to keep pace with and maximise opportunities presented by changes in technology, tradecraft and available data. The final goal I want to highlight is our aim to strengthen GEOINT partnerships. The Defence GEOINT community will undertake a more coordinated approach to developing purposeful, structured and outcome-orientated partnerships with industry and academia. Enhanced use of existing defence industry and innovation programs will ensure Defence GEOINT community requirements are well understood. Increased transparency will support the development and exploitation of leading-edge GEOINT technology, data and tradecraft to enable the defence mission. AGO Labs supports these three key goals in particular and is recognised as a program that can assist the defence community in realising the Defence GEOINT 2030 strategy. Thank you. I'll hand back to Laura.
All right, thanks, Claire, and thanks, Laura. So I'll jump in here. Scott Loney, I'm a project manager. I work on a major defence project that AGO is currently running that's imaginatively titled DEF 100. So this project is funding AGO Labs as a way to combine those three defence GEOINT strategies that Claire just talked about. To upskill analysts, find new ways to work with industry and academia, and to even investigate new machine analytics solutions. So the way we're doing this is by sponsoring a number of unclassified challenge topics. So the topics themselves have been released in 2 rounds. The first round we released at the end of last year, and those resulted in 3 engagements, which are close to completing now. And we're obviously now releasing the second round of challenge topics. So what we're really hoping is that interested parties will respond to these topics with a proposal that will be assessed and shortlisted. AGO will fund up to $100,000 to engage shortlisted organisations for them to demonstrate an approach to one of these challenge topics. We're expecting to fund 1 approach per topic, although if we get some really great responses, we might adjust that and potentially fund multiple approaches per topic. So we're looking for approaches that take between 3 to 6 months from kickoff to a final presentation. And AGO will work with FrontierSI, who will assist us with the promotion, which is what we're doing today, engagement of vendors and other management mechanisms as well. And primarily, from my viewpoint, Frontier will help to engage in subcontracts with successful applicants, thereby avoiding a somewhat protracted and challenging procurement cycle with the Commonwealth. Okay, so what we're looking for in a proposal, and there is a template that has been posted by FrontierSI on their website. So as per the notes in this slide, we're looking for clarity on what approaches you're looking to take to meet the challenges. We're looking for innovation. We're really hoping that participants can demonstrate something that is new to us, to AGO. So it may be something that's out there in the open source world, but we may not be aware of it. With the challenge topics that we're about to go through, they're provided at a fairly high level of detail. Where we can, we provided some sample user stories, but we're not trying to be prescriptive. We're willing to take input from the wider academic and industry community where possible. If we knew a lot about the topics that we're releasing, if we had a full set of requirements, we probably wouldn't be doing them as part of AGO Labs. We'd release an RFQ to industry. So with the proposals, we're expecting to provide us with an overview of your methodology, timeframes and deliverables. In terms of deliverables, as a minimum, I'd be expecting some form of a report and a final presentation. Depending on the topic, if you can do demonstrators or something like that along the way, that would be fantastic. We're also interested with the proposals in how you're planning to work with AGO subject matter experts. We expect that you'd be wanting to question them to get some background information, but we're also remembering that we're also trying to upskill our analyst community as well. So we're really keen for, in the proposals, how you will be engaging those SMEs as part of the upskilling, I guess, capability element. And also we're interested in what the next steps might be. So we run the challenge, and at the end of the challenge, there is also the opportunity to do some additional testing. So interested in what that additional testing might look like as well. And we're really keen, very focused on having Australian or New Zealand content as well as part of these challenge topics. Okay, so the 4 challenge topics that we're presenting today, we've numbered them 4 to 7 because 1 to 3 are currently underway. Now, we've inherited a culture of trying to promote these challenge topics by giving them what we call bad dad joke style titles. So apologies if they read a bit awkwardly. Please note also that there's a more detailed breakdown of these challenge topics on the FrontierSI website as well. And as discussed before, we're providing these at a high level. We're interested in how these topics can evolve. We're interested in your creative approaches as well. Now, obviously, AGO does have an intelligence function. These challenge topics have classified aspects to them, but don't be afraid to ask questions. If we can't answer, we won't, but we're really keen to be able to work with industry, both today and moving forward as we progress through the next set of subcontracts as well. Now what I want to do is have the challenge topics presented by our AGO subject matter experts. So Laura, if we could go to the next slide, and I'll hand over to Emma.
So hi all, my name is Emma Land and I'm here with my colleague David White. Our director at AGO has submitted the What Vessel Is That challenge. The challenge aims to investigate the development of an algorithm to be run over commercial synthetic aperture radar data to provide confidence levels for the categorisation of military and fishing vessels. Although there is substantial effort being applied to algorithms that can successfully detect vessels in open water using SAR data, AGO would like to investigate the development of an algorithm to assist in the categorisation of vessel detections into potential military and or fishing vessels. Ultimately, AGO is looking for a tool that analysts can use with commercial SAR data to quickly identify potential military or fishing vessels to a level of confidence high enough to justify the collection of a follow-up EO image for confirmation. We want a quick answer to the question: in a SAR image with 50 to 100 vessel detections, which vessel detection should our analysts be concentrating on? Ideally, AGO would like to see an algorithm that can recognise to some level of confidence an ocean-going military vessel between 50 and 200 metres on commercial SAR broad area radar with a resolution between 5 and 10 metres. An algorithm that can recognise to some level of confidence an ocean-going fishing vessel between 10 metres and 80 metres on commercial SAR broad area radar with a resolution of approximately between 5 metres and 10 metres. An algorithm that can recognise to a high level of confidence a military or fishing vessel that is alongside using SAR imagery with a resolution between 3 metres and 5 metres. And finally, AGO would like to understand at what resolution detection of different size vessels can no longer be categorised to any level of confidence. For context, a confidence level of at least 60% may justify a follow-up with EO imagery to confirm the assessment. So I'll leave my presentation there for the moment, but Dave and I will be happy to answer any questions during the Q&A session at the end.
All right, thanks, Emma. So if we could go on to challenge topic 5, Laura, and I'll hand over to Nathan.
Okay. So an increasing volume of imagery coming from more diverse sources gives us more concern about verifying the content of those things before we feed them to various algorithms. So this topic is focused on establishing what the state of the art is in the detection of modifications to satellite imagery that potentially have the capability of disrupting machine learning algorithms, by, for example, inserting objects, deleting objects, or potentially introducing noise sufficient to make the model not work as intended. So we're not talking about transport security here. We're not talking about verifying that the particular image has arrived from a destination intact. We're talking about malicious modification through whatever means. Obviously, there are several ways that could happen. The most obvious would be the trusted insider, for instance, who has changed something. So what we want to know is what's the state of the art? What sort of confidence can we expect in models that are trained to detect modifications for imagery? We're aware of some basic ones with very low confidence levels. and we'd like to know if there's anything that's better out there. So this is just about giving us the assurance in imagery sources that they have not been modified and that the algorithms that we're intending to apply to them are still able to work as we expect them to. So I'll leave that there and go on to the next one.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Yep, so challenge topic 6, please, Laura. And I'll hand over to Jackson.
Hello. So with machine learning, as I understand it, so at the moment, object detection is progressing. I have a quest with this issue is about not whether or not an algorithm can detect an object, but whether that object should be detectable in that image or not at all, based on geometry. So looking top down, essentially at the image labeled nadir image, that entire center road is visible and every car on it is visible to me and to a machine learning algorithm, looking at that image, trying to detect and classify cars. On the bottom image in the off nadir, you have a scenario where, because of the buildings and the geometry of the satellite collect, whether or not there are cars present at that location, there's no way a machine learning algorithm could give me a return saying that they are or are not present. It would currently default to nothing detected. But that is not the correct answer. The correct answer is, I don't know, and I could not know. So essentially, the focus of the challenge is on that third state, the unknown, and to determine some or a variety of processes by which a particular given location or a set of locations, so a specific coordinate or say a road network, could be reliably, we could have a reliable answer prior to processing an image against a machine learning object detection algorithm as to whether that object or that location or that set of locations would or would not be visible in that image to start with prior to processing. I think that's essentially the crux of the issue.
Thanks, Jackson. Next slide, please, Laura, and I'll hand over to Cam.
Hi, everyone. So sometimes AGO may know the physical dimensions of an object or facility of interest, but we might not know its exact geographic location. This gives rise to situations where analysts may be required to manually search through available imagery, which can be very time-consuming or outright impractical, depending on the potential search area that they're looking in. So this topic is trying to answer the question, can machine learning techniques identify things of interest in overhead imagery based on an input of known dimensions or shape of that thing of interest? On top of that, we're also interested in understanding the computational effort required to scan large sets of images across large geographic areas. So, for example, we may be looking to detect airfields, which from overhead imagery may look like 2 or more very long rectangles laid flat on the ground at ground level. We may be looking for a specific building, for example, a roughly 70 by 70 meter square building with a central courtyard inside it. The challenge is about trying to input simple shapes or sort of primitive geometries as the input and set an algorithm up to search imagery for things that match those shapes. We want to know how specific the input needs to be. A precisely measured 3D model would be the higher end of the spectrum. We're more focused on the simpler end of the spectrum, things like squares and rectangles. And we're interested in what sort of false hit rate that we would expect depending on the type of input. Yeah, I think that's all from me.
All right, thanks, Cam. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you. So what will you get from us as a participant? An opportunity to demonstrate your capability to AGO and funding to demonstrate the technology. You'll also receive access to the subject matter experts at AGO and advice and program management directly from FrontierSI, and quick turnaround times dealing directly with FrontierSI. As a successful applicant to the AGO Labs program, there is also access to marketing opportunities for your business. We've had excellent interest in the program so far, so there was real opportunity for exposure to a wide group working in the Earth observation and analytics space. And so what do we need from you? Demonstration of potential capabilities, techniques, approaches to the challenge topics. We're also, as Scott mentioned, looking for capability that AGO doesn't currently access. So that means it doesn't have to be completely new, but just new to AGO. We will also ask at the end of the project for your insights into the challenges and opportunities of working with AGO, so whether they be technology, relationship, or project-based. We're really keen to ensure we capture lessons learned to improve the program into the future. Overall, what we're really looking for from applicants is flexibility and openness to help AGO to try new ways of approaching each of these 4 challenge topics, as well as technology that has a potential path to operational use in the future. So most of you will have seen by now the proposal information briefing document, as well as the application template on the FrontierSI website. The closing date for applications is 2 weeks from today, so that's close of business on Tuesday, the 3rd of August. Further information, as I said, is available on our website. The assessment process will happen throughout August from FrontierSI and AGO, and successful projects will be notified in August, with subcontracting occurring and project kickoff taking place in September. Projects will be delivered within 3 to 6 months, as Scott mentioned, and we're looking at Q1 2022 delivery of reports and presentations to AGO. So we'll now move on to the Q&A session. Thanks to those who have submitted some questions so far, but please keep them coming. As I mentioned, we will be providing a question and answer document on the FrontierSI website. As I said earlier, there's no silly questions here, so please feel free to ask questions. If you are thinking about preparing a response to one of these challenge topics, I encourage you to take the opportunity to ask the subject matter experts details that you may be unsure about or extra information they might be able to provide to you now. This is your opportunity to do so. So please feel free to add your questions as we go. I've got one question here so far regarding IP. So the question is, if project IP is an extension to a commercial software product, how would this work, and could we clarify? So background IP is captured in the subcontract arrangement, existing background IP, which is protected. Rather than providing more information around IP specifics here, I think the easiest thing to do is if you can email me directly at the email address on the page at agolabs@frontiersi.com.au, I can provide you with an excerpt from the draft contract to provide you with some more information around background IP and project IP that is generated in the project.
Laura, I'll just jump in there very quickly though.
Yep.
Simplistically, things that we would regard as being IP generated as part of any subcontract would effectively be the report that gets generated at the end. We'd expect that we are able to keep a copy of that report. In fact, we have to for Commonwealth procurement reasons. Yeah, we're not going to be trying to commercialize anything ourselves, and you know, Defence is quite happy to pay for commercial products as well, obviously where they're relevant for our capability needs. But as you've already said, Laura, I'm certainly not a commercial IP lawyer, so we're happy to take those offline.
Yeah, and to expand upon that, the IP for using software, for example, if you had an existing software solution that would be used to demonstrate your solutions to these challenges, the use of that would be limited to the period of the contract, which would be the period of the project itself. But again, any further questions, please feel free to direct them to that email address, and I'll make sure that we get back to you as soon as we can. The next question is, are AGO able to provide a high resolution SAR dataset for the successful applicant?
So we're interested to find out if a particular vendor is playing with SAR data, what SAR data you would recommend. For some of the current challenges, we have provided access to data sets. So that is something we'd be happy to talk about, but we haven't exactly decided what we'll be doing in the SAR space yet. So I guess come to us with your proposal, what data sets you would recommend. If you have access to them already, great. And if you don't, but you're recommending a certain data set, then I guess put that in the proposal.
There's the same person who's asked that question, asked a question around labeled training data sets. I think that Scott's answer there has probably addressed that, but if you'd like further clarification, please feel free to expand on that question you've got regarding strategies in providing labeled training data sets. The next question is regarding topic 7. Is there any prioritization to the listed objects? And what geographies or areas should we consider? For example, cities versus deserts.
No, that's a good question. So I think with topic 7, we were planning to use Canberra Airport and Cam Holler, if I'm getting this wrong. Canberra Airport is a data set for that. So that way it would effectively be a semi-urban or urban style environment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's that would be a suggestion, but very open to a concept demonstrator showing how this would operate in more highly built up or more sparse areas as well.
Yeah, so there's no prioritization of listed objects, but I mean, it's a good question in relation to the geographies or areas that should be considered. So an urban area is going to have a lot of noise in it, whereas a desert won't have a lot of noise and might be easier in terms of avoiding some false hits and things like that. So yeah, good question. Don't have all the answers for you, but yeah, great question. Good thinking.
We've got another question here regarding SAR data. Is there any way participants could be connected with SAR or high resolution imagery providers? If this is something that you'd like to explore, we'd encourage you to include that in your application. And if you don't have those relationships existing already, it's by no means a deal breaker, and we could explore that if we did, if that was required, but there are not existing relationships at this point, although we may be able to link you with providers. Is there anything further that you have to add on that, Scott?
No, I think it's again, great question. So email it through, and if you don't have access to a SAR provider and you need one as part of your proposal response, it's possible we might be able to, maybe suggest some access points. Noting that we're not trying to put partners together ourselves. So, don't want to sully the waters with that.
Yeah. A question for challenge topic 5. Are we, after a review of existing approaches and based on this presenting ideas for an approach, or actually a working demonstration of an approach? We're after a demonstration of how to address the challenge topic. So a capability demonstration of how this challenge topic could be solved. But in doing so, and a literature review of existing approaches is often required. So for existing projects that are underway at the moment for round 1, in several cases, a literature review of the different types of approaches that might be possible is undertaken, then compared, and then one of the approaches selected and tested, and that capability shown.
Yeah, so just to actually clarify that one a little bit, we have categorized challenge 5, which is the Made You Look, as being more of a research focused one. We'd love to see some demonstrations, but if it ends up just being an academic exercise for that particular topic, I think that is something that we'd be prepared to consider.
A question for the vessel detection challenge. Can we use one of the commercial off-the-shelf databases for the identification of the vessels, or can AGO provide access if needed?
So if you've got access to an existing data set and want to use that as part of your proposal, then that's fantastic. Yeah, with the, I assume we're talking about the SAR one, then yeah, with that particular one, we'd be interested to know from your viewpoint what you believe a good provider might be, and yeah, if absolutely needed, then we can certainly investigate if we can get access to those data sets on a vendor's behalf.
A question: can participants involved in round 1 apply again for any of the challenges?
Sure.
Responses limited to submitting the proposal template only, noting the word limits. Yes, we do require you to use the template that has been included on the FrontierSI website. This just ensures an even playing ground for everybody who's submitting their applications. And if you have any issues with that, please do get in touch. We're not opposed to people, for example, linking to a website or something like that, but what will be considered is the content within the word counts of that template. We've got another question here. Just a couple of people are putting questions into the chat. Could you please add them to the Q&A just so that there's a couple of different windows at the one time? What's in the chat at the moment, that's fine. I'll cover that. But any questions, further questions to be put in the Q&A, which is just should be at the top of your screen, depending on your Zoom view at the moment. A question here is the importance of Australia and New Zealand local content. Can international companies participate in partnership with local partners? What are the guidelines for this sort of collaboration? We are certainly focused on Australia and New Zealand companies, which means that an Australian or New Zealand company needs to be the lead applicant. That doesn't mean, however, that an Australian or New Zealand company could not partner with an international organisation, but the lead applicant does need to be Australia or New Zealand. Is it possible to apply for more than one challenge? Yes, it is possible to do so. Please, if you have responses to more than one challenge, feel free to submit several applications. We encourage you to provide any responses that you have to these challenge topics that you think you can address. If there's any further questions, please keep them coming, and I'll just address these questions in the chat box. There's a question here for challenge topic 5. Do you need ways to assure imagery sources along with an analysis of how the imagery can be corrupted and how the models react to such corruptions? I think that might be one of the challenge 6 perhaps, but so I'll just read that again. Do you need ways to assure imagery sources along with an analysis of how the imagery can be corrupted and how the models react to such corruptions?
Yes. So in terms of assuring imagery sources with that particular challenge topic, as we've tried to highlight, we're not interested so much in securing the supply chain, assume that we have existing security protocols for doing that sort of thing. So what we want to detect is, or what we would love to be able to detect is ways to detect if images have been modified in some way, such as I think Nathan referred to it as effectively poisoning the image so that follow-on processes such as automated object detection won't work. And how the models react to such corruptions, yeah, that would be a fantastic bit of information for us. So yes. Thanks,
Scott. A question here about whether the topics will be distributed via email after this webinar. They won't be, but they are. All the information is at that website that is on your screen now. So a detailed description of each of the challenge topics, as well as the proposal template for the applications that needs to be used. So they are both located at that link. If there are any questions about accessing those or any issues at all, please do get in touch via the email address on the screen, but further information is provided on our website. We've got a couple more questions coming through. Thanks for that, everybody. So for topic number 7, are you open to submissions proposing additional objects, or should we focus on airfields, ports, schools, camps only? So those are the objects that have been put in the proposal the challenge topics proposal briefing document, but are there additional objects to be considered too?
Yep, absolutely. And again, I'll throw to Cam if I'm wrong here, but we're most interested in larger structures for this one. So it's not, individual detection of like a plane or something like that. It's more the ability to run algorithms based on a geometric input to try and detect larger structures across a wider space or expanse. So if you've got a good structure type that you'd like to be able to test, yes, nominate it. The ones we've thrown up on the website in the challenge topic description are just examples we came up with, but we're not limited, or we are limited in our imagination. So we're looking for your inputs.
Thanks so much for all these questions, everybody. Please feel free to add anything else that's come to mind. I've got a question here. Will we be told exactly how projects are evaluated, i.e. the specific input and anticipated outputs that will be provided? There is not a specific, I guess, how projects are evaluated is not shared, but I will say that it's essentially a review of exactly what is included in that proposal template. So that means addressing the challenge topic, addressing the potential use cases that have been put forward, as well as potentially suggesting others, the approach being innovative to AGO, the level of engagement with AGO. Those are the areas that are covered in the proposal document, and essentially the evaluation of the proposals are based around those criteria. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that, Scott?
No, I guess it comes back to one of the earlier slides though. I mean, we are trying to develop our own workforce, as well as introduce new capabilities as well. And as well as finding newer, better, more efficient ways of dealing with industry. So they're pretty large objectives to try and shoot for. And at the end of the day, we'll, along with Frontier, be evaluating these proposals on as an objective basis as we can. And we were keen to get as many and varied responses as is possible.
Just as an indication also that may prove useful for people who are looking to apply, for the round one projects that are underway, in most cases there's weekly engagement between the participant and AGO. So it's, as Scott mentioned, it's really about making sure that there's open flow of communication, and rather than a go off and spend 6 months addressing a challenge topic, we're really looking for engagement with AGO to ensure that upskilling, and also to check that we're on the right track throughout, rather than heading off on another direction that may not be what AGO's priority is. So we are looking for that level of engagement, and that's something to keep in mind. We've got another question regarding SAR imagery. If we have access to commercial SAR imagery, would the cost of that be covered in the $100,000 budget, or does the budget cover human resources, etc., and AGO covers the cost of acquisition? For some high resolution images sufficient to perform this project, the cost could exceed the budget.
Sure, put that in the proposal. It may well be that we could share the cost, for instance. It may well be, depending on what's being proposed, that AGO will cover the cost of acquisition of either SAR or other data sets as well. We'll take that on a case-by-case basis.
A question, will the questions and answers get published in writing along with the recording? Yes, there will be. A question and answer document will be prepared and posted on the FrontierSI website at the end of this week. Question on how can we demonstrate engagement with AGO in our applications? Trying to think back to how that was done best in some of the round one applications.
So firstly, I guess identify what the communication paths will be. Obviously, in these days of COVID restrictions, face-to-face meetings aren't necessarily very easy or even desirable. But also how you would engage the SMEs on a regular basis. How would you potentially be upskilling AGO participants, through workshops, demonstrations, whatever ways you can think of to both demonstrate a particular technology and to ensure that AGO analysts at the end of the day can also use particular technologies as well.
we've got a question about the organisations who are working on challenges 1 to 3, whether those are public. So there was not a media release listing those successful applicants, but we can let you know who they were. They were Xera, based in New Zealand, Orbica, based in New Zealand, and NJS, based here in Australia. And those projects are currently underway at the moment. We did also have a range of other companies that were involved in the pilot of AGO Labs, who were involved prior to round 1, but those are the current challenges 1 to 3 that are underway. Will there be any competitive disadvantage for local companies working with international partners and putting in a joint proposal? No, certainly not. We, as I said, we need an Australian or New Zealand company to be the lead applicant for this. And we're looking for lead applicants from Australia and New Zealand, but we're looking for the proposals that best address the challenge topics that have been put forward, and they will be assessed based on merit. Anything else from you, Scott, on that? No. Yeah, we're obviously, we're not operating in isolation. There's some great technologies out there in the wider world. We'd expect you to be trying to make use of them in one shape or another. So, yep, that'd be fine. I'd like to thank all of you for attending and for your interest in the AGO Labs program, and also a big thanks to the AGO subject matter experts for coming along today to answer your queries and also to provide a bit more context. As I said, a recording of this webinar will be made available on the FrontierSI website. On the website, there's also the proposal briefing document and the proposal template that needs to be submitted for your application. The applications close 2 weeks from today, so close of business on Tuesday, the 3rd of August. The Q&A from today will be put down in writing and will be posted on the FrontierSI website alongside this recording. And in the meantime, please don't hesitate to get in touch via the email address on the screen there with any queries that you may have. No other questions have come through. So on that note, if there's nothing else from you, Scott or Claire, before we end. No, thank you for hosting a well-organised webinar, Laura. No worries at all. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and we're really looking forward to receiving your applications. Don't hesitate to get in touch with any further queries. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon.